Wow, this full moon is epic. It's the second Capricorn full moon of this summer. I'll just say it's powerful. It's could be intense, but it's deeply healing and transformative. Personally, I see this as a full moon where we're really going beyond our typical and normal way of coming into success and allowing ourselves to come into an ascension of some kind, a new way of coming into our success, realigning with new ways of coming into our success that are going to be much more empowering. On an energetic level, I do see this full moon as like another influx of consciousness on the planet that initiates and sparks a type of deep and transformative healing for feminine energy, bringing it more into balance and equilibrium with masculine energy. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so the full moon is going to be on July 21st at 3:17 a.m. Pacific time zone, and it's going to be at the 29th degree, which is a critical degree, and there is a lot to go over regarding this full moon. But first, before I get started, I want to introduce myself to those of you that may not know me. My name is Michelle, and I'm a professional intuitive, energy healer, channeler, and astrologer. So I offer intuitive readings, healings, and natal chart readings. I also offer group sessions and classes, but generally speaking, I love to bridge the gap between the unseen world of spirit, consciousness, energy, and intuition so that it can apply to your everyday human experience. And I do that by teaching sensitive and awakened souls how to be in command of their energy, develop their intuition, so that they can navigate both their energetic and physical world in practical and empowering ways. So I love to mix my intuition with all kinds of things. And in particular with astrology, I love to look at astrology through the lens of my intuitive and energetic expertise and apply it to the way we evolve through our lives, our soulful evolution. So if you're sensitive or you've had a spiritual awakening or are beyond your spiritual awakening, going through more of your embodied enlightenment, self-realization, or an embodied ascension, I love to look at astrology through that lens. All right, so let's talk about the full moon. If you want any more information about me, you can find it in the description box below. The full moon is in Capricorn. So this is the second full moon in Capricorn. Now, the interesting thing about these two full moons in Capricorns is that, well, first of all, it's rare. The first full moon that we had in June was at the around the first degree of Capricorn, and that was before Saturn went retrograde. And that's important because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. So it's important to know what that planet is doing for this full moon. So now this is the second full moon, and Saturn has already gone retrograde, along with Neptune in Pisces gone retrograde. So, and it's like right there, right before Leo season, before the sun moves into Leo. So my sense is overall, this is preparing us on a deep level to be seen in a new way. Okay, so we're doing quite a big update energetically, and that does involve a karmic update, releasing our karma. It does involve transformation, healing, deep healing. So let's talk about Capricorn. A full moon is all about bringing something to culmination, bringing something to completion, fruition, or at times it can be very clarifying or revealing in some way. And so we're dealing with the energetics of Capricorn. Capricorn is a cardinal sign, okay, which means that it initiates things. It's also an earth sign, which makes it more related to our material world, practical world. And it's also feminine, which makes it more receptive. Okay. Capricorn is known for the sea goat, which is that kind of archetype of being able to come from the depths of like the ocean and take one step at a time and ascend to the summit of a mountain. And so I actually think Capricorn is a very intuitive sign simply because it has that ability to come from kind of initiate something from the depths of our inner world, the depths of our subconscious, the depths of our intuition, the depths of our emotion, and take an ascension, a journey, through time, one step at a time to come to the heights of something. So it's a very ambitious energy. It knows how to put in the work. It's not afraid of discipline, hard work, responsibility. It usually has these high achieving goals, and it's ruled by Saturn. Saturn's all about a planet that brings structure, discipline, responsibility, a delayed gratification over time. It also is a teacher, in that we're constantly learning from our past with Saturn. We're dealing with our karmic energies, from the past. And so it's kind of like an old grandpa kind of energy. It is important to know what's going on with Saturn because the full moon in Capricorn, Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. And so currently Saturn is in Pisces and it's currently retrograde. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But generally speaking, what I think is so beautiful and why we have this energetic of like a double Capricorn, full moon is that it's an energy that is so good at ascending, taking something from one level and taking it to a higher level. When we look at Capricorn spiritually, it absolutely knows how to embody and manifest. I see that Capricorn energy as an incredible catalyst of ascension. And why I think that's important is because Pluto is going retrograde. And if you did not watch my video in May, when I was doing a new moon in Taurus update, I talked about Pluto retrograde, where it's a 6-month period of time where I see the collective going through a type of ascension where, during that eclipse season, we had really rebirthed a new version of ourselves. And that version of ourselves is already going out into the world and operating in some way. But it's having to confront these old patterns, these old issues of power and control, and having to kind of break through those upper limits, break through those patterns, and address it in a new way from the new version of ourselves. And that's the type of ascension we're doing overall with that Pluto retrograde. And so that it's almost perfect to see these two Capricorn full moons because it's, allowing us to go through an ascension of sorts. Let's take a look at some of the major themes coming up. There's a ton of them. I've listed them here, and I'm going to go over some of them in more detail. But as you can see, there's quite a conversation going on in the sky during this full moon. It has quite an impact. So let's talk about the moon in conjunction with Pluto. So if you can see right here, I'm just circling it right here. The moon is going to be in Capricorn and it's going to be in conjunction with Pluto. So the moon has to do with our biological body. It has to do with our subconscious patterns, our emotional patterns, our subjective reality, show us our own intuitive nature and our relationship to that kind of inner mother or our relationship to the mother archetype within us. And it's a feminine, energy. And so that's going to be in Capricorn. Now, I'll first say that when the moon is in Capricorn, it's at its detriment, which means it doesn't, it doesn't have its optimal function in Capricorn. The moon is cyclic. The moon is emotional. The moon needs to express that emotion. And Capricorn is a sign that's very boundaried, very restricted, very structured, very contained. And although Capricorns are emotional, they tend to, on the outside, kind of present more of a kind of a front, a practical, rational kind of front, whereas within them, those emotions kind of can sometimes be compartmentalized, can be suppressed, can be hidden, can be, not easy to express or connect with. And so oftentimes when we're dealing with the moon in Capricorn, one of the difficulties of having the moon in Capricorn is suppressing those emotions, compartmentalizing and suppressing those emotions. Now, when we talk about Pluto in Aquarius, um, that is a masculine energy. Like Aquarius is a fixed masculine energy, and it's all about group consciousness, and it's more than that. But having Pluto in Aquarius is like having a very powerful, transformative, deep healing for the collective, for group consciousness, for humanity, really. Okay. Now, Pluto is a planet that's also all about our soul's evolution. Pluto will take you into the depths of your darkness, the depths of your fear, the depths of your psychology, the depths of your shadow sides, the underworld, so to speak, and take you through an experience so that you can move through your fears, move through those um, dynamics that you need to heal through so that you can really evolve, so that you can really heal, so that you can transform, go through metamorphosis, and really come into your power. Okay. So oftentimes when you have experiences with Pluto, you're dealing with your soul's evolution, which can feel like experiences that are completely outside of your control. Pluto conjuncting the moon, I first want to talk about what that might look like. And what that might look like is the purging or the releasing of suppressed feminine energy. Now, Pluto's highly intuitive, it's deep, it's powerful, it's transformative. And so we may be purging psychological or emotional things that have been suppressed. Now, this is going to impact cardinal signs the most, given that this is in the late degrees of Capricorn. So if you are an Aries, Libra, Cancer, especially having personal placements in the late degrees of those signs, this is going to impact you more on a personal level. But it's also going to impact Pisces placements as well as Aquarius. Now I want to talk a little bit about some interesting details here that actually make this full moon very significant and even more intense. And that is that the moon is going to be at the 29th degree of Capricorn. Now, the 29th degree is considered an anaretic degree. It's a type of critical degree, which makes it kind of unstable and volatile. Okay, so it's kind of like something that's, really subject to unpredictable behavior. Okay. And it can be a very interesting degree in which it puts us into a state of consciousness that is kind of outside time and space, between the realms, but it can also bring up, what one might consider like a fated experience, like something that like is meant to end, something that is meant to come to a culmination, something that is meant like fated circumstances, something that's kind of beyond our normal perception of some kind. When I kind of put that together, I really sense, like in Capricorn, I really sense we're going beyond our average way of coming into our success, or coming into our goals or coming into our ambitions. We're going beyond that average normal way of doing that. We're like disrupting a pattern. We're disrupting the old way. Like, we are getting rid of some old ass energy here. We are releasing some karma around some old shit, okay? And we are going beyond the way we used to do it, and we are stepping into a new way of doing it. And we got to clear that old shit out. And that's what's happening with this with this full moon at the 29th degree. We're going to be coming into our success, our spiritual ascension, our creative liberation, and our personal transformation in a whole brand new fucking way. And that is kind of the full moon vibe. But I do want to speak about Saturn and Pluto because, like I mentioned, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is going to be in Pisces over here, which, by the way, this chart is drawn up in the location of Hawaii. So the house system is going to be different for your personal chart, but I'm just using this so you can see the placements of the current transits. Yeah, Saturn's over here in Pisces. What I'm noticing about Saturn in retrograde here, and even Neptune in retrograde, is we're dealing with this energy of Pisces. Okay. And Pisces is a highly creative sign. Okay, so it deals with our creativity. It also is an intuitive water sign, so it can be emotional, it can also be sensitive, and it can be very multidimensional. It can be very expansive. It's traditionally ruled by Jupiter, so it can be highly expansive, and it's boundless. Traditionally, not traditionally, but also ruled by Neptune, and Neptune's a very boundless kind of energy. It's also a highly spiritual sign because it embodies, every archetype of the zodiac. And so it's a very wise, compassionate, empathetic kind of sign. And what I'm sensing about this retrograde, when Saturn goes retrograde, traditionally speaking, we're kind of reworking our structures. We're reworking our boundaries. We're reworking, you know, um, what we need to do to bring things in order, to create structure, to create boundaries, to deal with our karma, to deal with the past. And it's going to be in Pisces. I see this retrograde as kind of like where we've allowed parts of ourselves to escape our evolution, to bypass our evolution, where we've gotten misaligned in the evolution or experience that we came here to have, where we may have gotten lost or blended in, or disconnected in some way. And I just see that this retrograde is helping to kind of rein in those parts of us and get us back into alignment and cooperating with kind of our higher spiritual authority, which is kind of that like evolution that we're here to have. Pallas Athena is trining Saturn over here in Scorpio, over here. So Pallas Athena is like a warrior goddess, and she is in Scorpio, which is extremely psychic, intuitive, and strategic, psychological, deep, very healing, very regenerative, very powerful, very transformative. Okay, so that Pallas Athena is a warrior goddess, and so it's a type of archetype that helps us bring our truth into the physical, the warrior within us manifest things. It really brings our truth into reality. It helps us get shit out of the way and really bring it into the physical. So we have this trining of Pallas Athena to, Saturn. And intuitively, what I was noticing about this is, that warrior type energy within us, especially that feminine warrior within us, kind of going really deep in our energy and kind of uncovering and releasing old anchors in our energy. So what do I mean by anchors? Well, sometimes when we are in an old way of living, like an old pattern, we are energetically anchored into relationships, jobs, locations, material possessions that help us stay in those patterns, that help us ground into an identity, a way of being, a certain state of consciousness, a way of living. And that anchor can even be a type of wounding that we're anchored into that keeps us small and limited and gives us a certain type of experience that we're living in. And so, for us to open, for us to release, for us to heal, and for us to ascend, okay, we have to drop old anchors. And so, this is kind of what I see Pallas Athena doing with Saturn is she's going deep into our energy and she's finding those old ass anchors that are keeping us stuck at certain levels in our energy. And she's kind of uncovering them and unanchoring from them, so kind of liberating us from those old anchors so that we can ascend. Okay. Now, another interesting thing about what's happening with Pluto over here is that we have Lilith trining Pluto. So Lilith is over here in Libra. And first of all, Lilith is an energy that's kind of like the dark side of the feminine or the shadow side of the feminine, the wounded side of the feminine. It's those parts of us that want to be kind of liberated and healed and have in this case with Lilith in Libra, the feminine is kind of the wounded feminine is in need for more balance and equilibrium and harmony, because that's what Libra is all about. And it's going to be trining Pluto, which means there's this like effortless flow of energy from Pluto and this big, healing release that's happening with Pluto regarding our feminine energy, and so this full moon, like I mentioned, is kind of like an influx of consciousness that helps us purge, old, wounded feminine energy from our space. It's a big healing and integration for the wounded feminine, bringing the feminine more into this equality, to be seen as an equal, to be seen as powerful, to be seen as sovereign, to be seen in her primal intelligence and wisdom, to come into more confidence in that intuitive nature, to show up differently in those relationships, not as a servant, but as an equal of some kind. And so this influx of consciousness coming in around this full moon is definitely going to initiate some type of feminine healing or integration within us. All right, and then we've got continuing to look at Mars trining Pluto here. They're both, this is what's interesting, and it makes it even more potent, is that, Pluto's going to be at 0 degrees and Mars is going to be at 0 degrees, and there's a trine between them. So again, there's this like effortless flow of energy between this very powerful evolutionary kind of purge that's happening with Mars. And Mars is that planet that has to do with moving through our obstacles, our motivation, our will, conflict, war. So there's going to be a trine here. So, there, I'm sensing so many things all at once. But first of all, 0 degrees, it's a critical degree. It's very potent. It's a very potent. It's kind of like the difference between concentrate or diluted. Yeah, like if you get, concentrated, cranberry juice, it's like super tart. It's like very cranberry, right? So then you dilute it with water and it becomes, oh, like you can actually drink it and it doesn't taste, awful. Right. So same with things at 0 degrees. It's a very concentrated energy of Aquarius and Pluto and a very concentrated energy of, Mars and Gemini. So it's very mental, it's like a super masculine mental energy here. And, the interesting thing is Aquarius is also ruled, it's co-ruled not just by Saturn traditionally, but also Uranus, which is the higher mind. And then, Mars will just be moving into Gemini at 0 degrees, which is ruled by Mercury, which is kind of like more of our human, mind. Mercury, the messenger of gods. So there's definitely this flow of energy between the higher mind, giving us a direct flow of information, to more of our human mind, that motivates us, transforms us, and helps us move through our obstacles. And I really do see this as something that could be intense for us mentally. Like, um, it could, it feels corrective. Like when I'm looking at this intuitively, it feels intense, authoritative, corrective in some way. Kind of like when your soul comes in and it's kind of like had enough with you. And it's kind of like charging into the room and it's like, get your ass over here, and it takes you by the shirt and kind of drags you across the room and sits you at a table and says, this is where you need to be. Don't be talking and chit-chatting over here. You need to get your ass over here and sit down and do this. This is the real thing that you need to be doing. Okay. So that's kind of what I get a sense of. It's a very powerful realignment that I sense happening. And one of the ways in which that alignment happens is we get this connection with our higher mind. It's like having an awakening of some kind. It's like having an insight or realization or a revelation of some kind. It's like, what? We get that influx of light into the mind. And then we go through this realignment where it's like, whoa, this is where I need to be. Um, so I do notice that, when it comes to like Gemini energy, that's more of like it can be a very social energy where you're dealing with more of that one-on-one socializing. Like I'm talking to you and you like flowers. So I'm going to talk about flowers. And then I'm going to talk to you and you like pancakes. So I'm going to talk to you about pancakes. And it's very good at socializing and kind of meeting each person where they're at. Whereas Pluto is in Aquarius. Aquarius is all about that group energy, humanity. And so my sense is that, this soulful evolution that's happening is saying, hey, you've been focusing your energy on kind of more singular, in a more singular way, in a more limiting way that is restrictive and it's minimizing your impact. And you need to do it this way, a totally different way, so that you have a bigger impact around you, like on the group around you, on humanity. Like we need to take this to a bigger level. We need to take this to a group level. We need to make your impact go from like this like tiny place to a bigger place. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm sensing about that. And, when I was intuitively looking at, this being at 0 degrees, it really looked like we're hitting the gas pedal. Like this is a very, very fast, um, like shift or influx of light, whether you're ready for it or not, kind of thing. Like start before you're ready, kind of thing. You might, whatever you're getting into, whatever action you're taking at this time, even if it's just mental action, it's just kind of like you're, you know, it's almost like getting put into a situation or circumstance, a little bit caught off guard and like ready for it, but not ready for it, kind of feeling. Okay, but the full moon is definitely about letting go, purging, and realigning. Okay, and something interesting that I see here happening in Capricorn is that we've got Ceres in Capricorn. Looks like she's going to be retrograde at that time, and she is squaring the North and the South Node, okay, which means that there is some kind of destined conversation that she's having at this time around the full moon. Okay, North Node is in Aries, South Node is in Libra. The North Node is that direction that we need to be going in. Which is in Aries, which has to do with our individual self. And then, that South Node is that energy in which we have a lot of experience and we have a lot of wisdom around it, but we need to break some old ass patterns around that as well and let go of some old patterns around that. And really balance out our wisdom with like that new individual self that we need to be aware of, and embody more. So when we have Ceres is an asteroid that's all about what we nurture. So what is she doing? She's nurturing our ambitions. She's nurturing our step-by-step process. She's nurturing the way we ascend. She's nurturing that practical, materialistic, building structure, building routine, building discipline. She's kind of like that authoritative mom, energy who's making sure that you show up every day to do the work, and that's the way she's nurturing you. She's squaring the north and south node. And intuitively, what I was seeing there is that, sometimes when you step into a new way of doing something, you have to confront the old way and you have to let that go, right? You have to say, this is the old way I'm doing something and it's not working for me, and I need to let it go so that I can embrace this new thing. And so I'm really sensing that there's been something in our lives that it's almost like we're fated, or we're meant to pull our energy away from it. It's like it's not been working for us. It's slowly been dying. It's slowly been like not really giving us the same pizzazz or vitality that it's given us before. And this is kind of one of those moments where we kind of have to look at it and say, you know what, I'm going to completely stop giving my energy to this. I'm going to give my energy to something else. So I feel like that nurturing energy that we've been giving something, we're now going to withhold it, pull it away, and say, I'm not going to give it to this anymore. Instead, I'm going to channel it in this direction. So we could be going through a type of letting go or ending or death process when it comes to something we've been nurturing regarding our ambitions or goals in our external world. And again, it has to do with our individuality, who we're becoming, and letting go of, old patterns in the ways we've been showing up. So the other thing I want to mention around this letting go is that Chiron is also going to be in Aries over here. Okay. And we have Chiron in a trine with Mercury over here that's going to be in Leo. This is going to bring up wounds in our individual self, wounds, and the wisdom of those wounds. And it's going to be in trine with Mercury, the messenger of gods, our minds, and so this is going to be a mental healing. Okay, we're going to, in this full moon, we're going to have this natural flow of energy that gives our minds our way of communicating, a healing. And seeing that that is in Leo, um, which is a sign that's all about self-expression, all about expressing our leadership, our natural talents, shining our light, like drama, things like that. I mean, it's getting this trine energy. So this is a very supportive aspect. This is like a healing that's happening on a mental level, helping us to express maybe our talents, our gifts, being seen more by others, releasing maybe where we've been hypercritical, or where we've been too focused on details, where we've been seeking perfection instead of just being ourselves, being authentic, being real in some way. Seeing that Mercury is in Leo. Leo is ruled by the sun. The sun will be at the 29th degree of, Cancer. I mean, we're getting a double whammy with Cancer. Like, this is stuff that we need to release, that is, inhibiting us from feeling probably like emotionally safe or secure or protected in some way. It's like a personal thing, it's a very personal, vulnerable, kind of sensitive healing going on. The sun will be in sextile to Mars, and technically also Uranus, because they're going to be in a conjunction as well. So the sun will sextile Uranus days before the full moon, which to me looks like a pattern disruption, that we can really be stuck in our patterns, same, especially Taurus, Uranus is going to be in Taurus, and Taurus is a very fixed energy. It's very stubborn. It can be very stubborn energy. It really has its ways, it's like a big cow, it's hard to move around a cow. You don't see them like galloping through the fields, they're usually just like, standing, and that's what they do. So so really I see this as like, there's been some things where maybe we've been a little bit stubborn and stubborn in our ways, stubborn in our patterns, and we get this nice pattern disruption that happens. It's like, well, you can't do that anymore. It's like, you're gonna, like, let's say you have this pattern where you keep eating chocolate every time you get sad, and then, and then all of a sudden it's like someone comes in and just smacks it out of your hand. They're like, nope, you can't do that. And you're like, what? I can't do that pattern anymore, So there's something that comes in days before this full moon that's kind of like, blah, 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 you can't do that. Let's disrupt that pattern. Let's create some chaos or disruption so that, you can't go back into that old ass pattern that you have. So something unpredictable that happens that may force us to take action, and brings in that highly intuitive or creative way of accomplishing or moving through our challenges. Um, Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is going to be in Leo, so this could be related to, again, being seen, shining our light, our self-expression, our authenticity. So I generally see this as, when the sun is in sextile with Mars, specifically for this transit, when I was looking at the energy, it just kind of seems like we're getting a good divine push, like in the direction that we need to go in. Uh, you might have like that feeling of like, wait, what what choice do I make? What decision do I make? Where do I go? I have a lot of different options here. And then you get that, get that divine push that's like, this way. You need to go this way, So I know a lot of you are probably excited to hear that. It could be intense, obviously, with this full moon conjunct Pluto. It could feel emotionally intense. It could feel mentally intense. It could be intense in some way, but intense is not bad at all. It just, like it will just show up in a way that's like, whew, that was powerful. Another thing I want to say here is Sedna is going to be in conjunction with Mars, but it's that archetype of that goddess Sedna that, she essentially pissed off her dad, and her dad basically tried to kick her off a boat, and she was hanging on to the boat, and so he chopped off her fingers and hands, and she fell to the depths of the ocean and had this big transformation and really came into her kind of magical powers as a goddess, So it does tell this kind of mythological story within us of like, sometimes we have to unattach from something that we're really attached to in order to go through the transformation that we need to go through. And, we've got this trine energy between, Pluto and Sedna. And so to me, this says that whatever is dying, whatever we're letting go of, whatever needs to release, whatever we're purging, it's going to have that natural, easy kind of letting go process. We might be attached to it in some way, but it just might be one of those moments where it's kind of like natural to let it go. You're like, you know what? I really love this thing. I was really attached to it, but like I can see that it's going nowhere, or it's come to its time. It's kind of like officially saying, you know what? I'm gonna put a stamp on it and call it done. Like we just got to be done with this. You may have seen this coming. It might not be a surprise to you. It could be a total surprise to you, but because Uranus is involved, so it could be surprising, could be unexpected, but definitely is a nice flow to it, and possibly very natural to let it go. I really sense that, we have to let go of that old version of ourselves or that old thing or that old pattern or that old way of being to really come into a new way of shining our light to be seen in the world. So I ultimately think this is an amazing full moon. I mean, intense, powerful, but incredible. And, it's like one of those things where like I feel like for people that have felt like stuck, I really feel like this is kind of like that divine push that's kind of like, especially if you're not really quite sure where you're going with things and like you've kind of got this sense of this overall direction you need to go through, but you're like really kind of stuck on like knowing exactly what to do, where to go, how to do it, this could be one of those experiences where it's a little bit like, oh, go that way. Um, it could be, maybe not for everyone, like, but on an energetic level, I think this is definitely a realignment. One of the more beautiful things coming through is that Venus will be in sextile to Jupiter. These planets bring like really beautiful energies, Venus and Jupiter. Venus all about beauty and money and harmony and love and relationships, and Jupiter, that kind of wise teacher, philosophical, adventurous, kind of higher learning kind of energy there. So when we have Venus and sextile to Jupiter, that's a very supportive energy. We're resourced to have this beautiful, big, destined expansion. Jupiter is very expansive for ourselves and our individual self. That supports our relationship, our self-worth, and our heart's desires. So Venus, it's going to be in sextile to Jupiter. So there's this beautiful expansion happening. Um, it brings more harmony. It brings more balance. It brings more self-worth. It brings more of our heart's desires. It brings an expansion in our heart's desires. Like it's really beautiful to have that aspect. And Venus, will be in Leo. So it's all about, being seen, shining our light. And Venus will be trining the North Node, which means this expansion is happening very quickly in a very easy, effortless way on an individual level for ourselves. And it's also going to be in a sextile to the South Node, which means, it's going to be supporting our relationships. It's going to be supporting the way we show up in our relationships. Um, Shining our light, expressing ourselves more in a bigger, more beautiful, probably more powerful way, given that this is kind of all oriented around, Pluto being conjunct to this moon. Like it's a big deal. Like this is a very kind of rare full moon in some ways. Could be very karmic, very fated in some ways. Okay. So those are the main points I wanted to cover. There's so much we could discuss about the full moon, but I do want to just, you know, mention those things that are standing out to me. If you need any support during this full moon, you're going through purging process, you need an energetic healing, you need some intuitive insight to current challenges, obstacles, personal growth that you're going through, don't be afraid to hit me up. You can find more information in the description box below. Um, and I wish you all a very powerful and transformative full moon in Capricorn. Thanks. Bye.